Today, we investigate into the role of performance-enhancing drugs in sports and analyze how fanatics like you perceive this issue. Now showing a BT presentation, Steroids in Sports.
Sports, I guess, is fair, is when the entire playing field is level. In other words, when everyone is doing the same thing. So, a few years back, when Lance Armstrong was riding the Tour de France, he claims that everybody was doing steroids, which is why it was justified.
In 2012, Lance Armstrong admitted to doping with performance-enhancing drugs. CNN wrote that his epic downfall from an idolized icon stands out in the history of sports. Names like Pete Rose, A-Rod, Barry Bonds, and Ben Johnson come to mind when talking about cheating in sport, like Armstrong.
One of the guys that I really enjoyed watching playing was Barry Bonds. And when he got in trouble with the whole performance-enhancing drug thing, it really didn't impact me because, during the time he was in there, basically not everybody was doing performance-enhancing drugs, but there was a lot of people in it, and I'm sure that, head guys on the team were encouraging him to do it.
Sport like track, where the records matter, baseball where the records matter. I think that then it really matters. It's a very important issue. In a sport like baseball, with Barry Bonds, breaking the home run record, is it fair to a guy like Babe Ruth, whose record he broke? No, it's really not.
Players in the pre-testing era did not have to think twice about what they ingested in their bodies. Current athletes are constantly under the microscope.
They have to worry about what they're getting over the counter, or sometimes even what they're eating, because they could get tested up to 1 or 2 times a year, and if they get caught with a performance-enhancing drug, that could end their career. That could just ruin their whole integrity as a player. And there's just a lot more opportunities for players nowadays to get in trouble than there used to be.
Even though most current athletes have access to the best nutrition and legal supplements, some players continue to be selfish and risk their team's fortune.
I view a person that takes performance-enhancing drugs knowingly as a person that is more concerned about themselves rather than the team, because if they get caught with performance-enhancing drugs, that could take them away from the team. They could get banned for however long the organization wants to ban them for, and that could take away from their team's performance, possibly if it's a good team. Like if the Golden State Warriors, Steph Curry knew he's taking a performance-enhancing drug, that could just ruin their whole season, and instead of winning a championship, they could, lose the first round, and that's really just all on him, and that brings down the whole organization, the whole team.
So naturally, growing up around cycling, Lance Armstrong was like the hero. I woke up every day and I looked, at my wall, and there was Lance Armstrong in his yellow jersey with his hands up, celebrating a Tour de France victory, and that was kind of who, thinking about heroes, like childhood heroes, and who I wanted to be most like. It was Lance Armstrong. He survived cancer. He was an amazing, role model for everyone. Right? Come 8 years later in 2013, I think it was, Lance Armstrong came clean about everything, and it completely kind of ruined my entire image of who he was. So I think that for my children, I would, obviously my dad feels probably even more upset than I do about this whole Lance Armstrong thing, because he grew up watching me, wanting to be like Lance and wanting to, bike race, and then all of a sudden here comes this thing when I'm all grown up, to Lance Armstrong basically comes, is a cheater, a liar, and a really bad person.
The conversation between parents and their children about who they look up to in sports is important. When to have that conversation varies by person.
Kids have dreams, and they want to be who they like and who they love, and you kind of don't want to crush your kid's dreams just because his favorite athlete is taking performance-enhancing drugs. It could be something you can explain later on in life when your kid is more willing to understand and has the brain power to understand. But as of right now, you just got to let the kid, play a sport he loves and follow the athlete that he loves, because he doesn't know that he's did take performance-enhancing drugs.
With technology and ingenuity at an all-time high, performance-enhancing drugs are only going to magnify from here. Competition in sports will never deplane, and with that, the urge to cheat will always remain.